Welcome to you all, and thank you for adding your color to this evening in Technicolor in honor of Tony Bannon and his many accomplishments as our director for the past 16 years. I'm Dan Myers. I'm proud to be a member of the Board of Trustees, but most importantly tonight, I'm an FOB, a friend of Bannon's.
So about 2 years before Tony came to be the director of the Eastman House, I became the director of the International Center of Photography. And when I heard that Tony became the director of the George Eastman House, I called him up like, the third day he was here. And I said, let's dance. And he was kind of like, my seat's not warm. I mean, let me just like sit at my desk for a little while. And we did dance. And actually, we've been dancing for a long time together now. And it was so obvious. The International Center of Photography is in New York. It has a beautiful public gallery. It has a school of over 6,000 students, a master's program, a school about making pictures. It has a collection of 150,000 pictures, which I will tell you is like, it's good, it's good, it's good, it's good. It ain't this, it ain't the Eastman House. And the Eastman House had that incredible collection. And its education programs were not about, building photographers and how to make pictures and so forth and so on. Its education programs were about preservation and conservation. I mean, can you see this thing? Can you see it? And imagine, do not report this to New York City, but I have to say, as a loyal alumni of the University of Rochester and Visual Studies Workshop and et cetera, that, there's no place like this place. There's none. And yet I have to say that figure out what to do with it. Enough said. He has to be a visionary. And he also has to be a scholar. And he also has to be a fundraiser. And he also has to be a manager. And he has to be all of these things to all people. Whatever it is that they need at that given time, he must provide. And you know what? You can't do it. You can't be all things to all people. You can't do it. And I think that the average tenure for a museum director in this country is 7 years. Yeah. And they're kind of like academics, you move from one institution to the other, and if you have a successful career, you end up at Harvard or something like that, the equivalent. If you don't, you end up, in community college or something. But, 7 years. So this guy has been the director for 16 years, the longest seated director in the history of the Eastman House.
Tonight, Tony's final night as director at the museum, it's fitting that we celebrate these enormous accomplishments with the George Eastman Medal of Honor. The George Eastman Medal of Honor is awarded for meritorious service to the advancement of the principles embodied by George Eastman. Tony, your service to the George Eastman House and to the legacy of George Eastman is nothing short of breathtaking. For 16 years, you have shared your passion, your love for the George Eastman House, not only with this community, but with the nation and the world. You have been and are a voice for the preservation of the world's visual cultural history. On behalf of the Board of Trustees and your colleagues of the George Eastman House, and on behalf of every person in this room this evening, I am honored to present you the George Eastman Medal of Honor.
There's a lot that's familiar here, and what a pleasure it is to look out at this great space again. But you know what? It's as I look at this familiar space, good indeed that it will change, that there will be new seats in the Dryden, and how about a new podium with a with better light. And indeed, over time, those faces that I so enjoy looking at, you too will change. I love these fine faces and this glorious space that has known so much history, so much history. I'd like to say something inspirational and that you'd take home some memory that mattered from this evening. But first of all, it matters right now to say what is in our hearts, Elizabeth and me, and to express our love and respect for those who have just spoken, and to point to them as the wise ones, the sustainers, and to express our gratitude for their huge contributions to our culture and our house here, and thus to our lives. Now, I am the Ron and Donna Fielding director, and for a few more hours. So let it be said how much we miss Donna Fielding on this the anniversary of their wedding today. Tom Jackson is our board chair, and what an extraordinary job he has done to move us into this wonderful change, not to find shoes with not to fill shoes, but to find new shoes. Debbie Wilson and Dan Myers, thank you for your friendship. It has been such a privilege to be your friend. What it means to be a family, and what it means to matter, and how we do together sustain this extraordinary museum called George Eastman House. It is a culture, this family, that counts. It's a great place, George Eastman House, and you sustain it. And yes, it's archives, and yes, it's interpretation, but it's a whole lot more. It's an undeniable spirit, a spirit that we feel tonight, a spirit that we rejoice in, a spirit that will sustain this museum through the 8th director and the 9th director and so on. Thank you so much for your sustaining spirit and for all that you do for this great place. And thank you from Elizabeth and from me. Thank you.
A is for Anthony, doctor and wonder worker. B is for Bannon, see what he's done. Everywhere Eastman, film by George by golly G. Garden House, an international reputation, Judge Kodak's founders, legacy and library, magnificent second to none, opportunities overflow, photography's vast store, quest for resources, resourceful, staggering success, schools, technology, teaching, university, underlying versatility and vast vaults of wondrous wealth and wisdom. Wow. We're not done. X marks the spot. Why? Because we love you. And Z, not so long, but see you real soon. So thank you all.